Welcome to the R.E.A.L. podcast, where hosts Shane Kilby and Duane Murphy dive deep into the world of real estate agent life. From overcoming hurdles to celebrating success, join us as we explore the journeys of industry veterans and rookies alike. Get ready for bi-weekly episodes packed with advice, feedback, and mentorship from the best in the business.
We just got back from the Chip Blach Mastermind in Tahoe.
Yeah, I saw you guys were traveling, man.
It was an awesome event, a very awesome event. You know, his style is straight to the point and and in your face. You know, that football coach style, but that's what is so effective.
I think it's awesome, man. Like, I remember the first time I heard Shep Blach was in 2012 at a Kinder Reese event. And I was like, holy crap, who's this guy? But you know what, man? Like, if you follow him, like, he's been super consistent the whole time. Like, he's never changed to become like what's cool right now. And I don't know, I had like a similar experience of what I feel like it would be like if you were to coach with him with Lars. Like, I knew I needed Lars at the time I needed him, but I didn't really want to do it because I knew it was going to be painful. And I feel like that's how it would be to approach Shep Blach. It's like, this is going to get you uncomfortable, but it's probably the thing that's keeping you from the next level.
Yeah, I agree totally. Because it's like, because I suck up all of his free stuff, and we catch a lot of Maverick events and stuff like that, and those guys have really built something amazing, like all of the different pieces. And Duane and I had this conversation too, like, man, back in the day coming up, like if you'd had access to each of the pieces that these guys have created, like, most of us we did need everything that these guys offer and all of the different programs that they have available in sort of a la carte type off the buffet. But, now, like looking back, like if we could have picked certain pieces, like these guys have got operations dialed in, they've got the entire, lead gen and prospect. They've got all these systems and things and key critical aspects of scaling real estate dialed into a science. And although you look at it like, man, it's from now looking at it's like, man, that's a significant cost. But if you didn't have all the costs that you already vested in today, it would be a bargain. And all the money that you've spent time you'd saved.
Yeah, to unravel the organizations we have now and all the pieces and all the tech stacks and just all that it is, to roll under that umbrella would be painful.
Totally.
Like it would make me cry. Just thinking about it makes me shudder. But like Shane had said, with what they have built, I look at this like, shoot, 18 years ago when I got into this, 19 years ago when I got into this, to be able to build off those, those systems, those processes, it's such a different world of real estate now. Than what it was. Teams
Totally.
didn't really exist back then, right? So that was a new frontier for most, and and then just you have the Levions and the places and all those different systems like that and organizations that are just it's a different game. Even when you look at like with EXP, you're right, not to give a shameless plug for them or whatever, but the XPs, LPTs, the different organizations that that have the internal masterminds or have the the sharing of stuff across the board, way different than some of those, the way the big box brokerages did it back in the day. Right.
Yeah, the truth is today you can get all the information and all the coaching that I paid for 15 years ago for free, and probably a better version than what I was paying for then. But back then it was just kind of like everybody had their cards held tight. I think it was more like what you might find on the commercial side of things today. Like, people are running their own businesses, they're figuring things out, but they're not sharing anything. And I think there's been a lot of change over the last decade or so, and I kind of get excited about it because I feel like when I was on the come up, it was that change in market conditions of 2007 that really paved the way for me to be able to carve out a space in this real estate game for myself. And if it hadn't been for that disruption in the marketplace, I don't know that I would have gotten to where I got to. Like that was the opportunity, and I seized it, and I went all in on some things that allowed me to like just move away from my competition in a way that let me, build something amazing.
Yeah, I think all three of us were in that same timeline of surviving that, the most disruptive market in history, right? And the Great Correction. And, I think we're in a pretty good one right now.
Yeah.
But,
And most agents haven't been through that, right? So like they're coming on their first speed bump in the road. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to say I can remember, right. There's so many, you're talking about the knowledge that's out there and the ability to gain so much information that people put out there now compared to what it used to be. Like right back in the day, there wasn't much out there for free content. I know I scraped and stole and reused and remarketed and whatever, right? Borrowed, borrowed everything,
It was
right?
all about being rad, man.
That NEAA, right? But Jay Kinder, Mike Reese back in the day, everything that they put out, like right, I was scraping and borrowing and changing and tweaking and whatever, and and they led with a lot of value right before that sale, and there wasn't really a lot of people back then doing that, whereas now that's become a almost the model, right, to follow is lead with value, value, right, and then if you have a hook, set the hook, but it's lead with value, and people will see your worth.
The funny thing about, Chip Blach is it's like, I mean, what you see is what you get. There's no smoke and mirrors there. It's like every day in this business, I know for me, I've probably blown, I'm embarrassed to say, a couple of $1 million, and maybe more, just in that easy button or that next, 10x scalability or whatever. And then you go listen to this guy, and it's in like you said, John, it's just his messaging is resonated from the beginning, and I'm sure, like, I wasn't connected to him back in 2012, but I'm sure like people then are like, man, this guy's like, this can't be, like, there's too much moving and shaking, there's too many nuances about the business to be that simple. And man, every message I've heard him say, every message I've seen him write, every Zoom I've been on with him, every event I've attended, it's simple solves the complex, man. And we will kill ourselves trying to find a simple way to do things when we're standing on top of it. That's the wild thing.
So one of the things that I say all the time, and this is what I love about Shep Blach, is I feel like two people looking at us from the outside, like, I'm as different of a person than Chip Blach as like a person can be, but we say the exact same thing. And what I always tell people is, I say, look, what are we looking for in our business? For the people that like I gravitate and I resonate with, like, I like progress. So when I get around other people that are dreamers and they want to achieve a lot for their family, for themselves, for their business, for their team, like, they're progress oriented. If you're not progress oriented, like, we're probably just not even going to like be in the same world together. But what I always say is this: simple scales and complexity fails. And simple doesn't mean easy. It's actually very difficult to be simple. There's genius in what Steve Jobs created with Apple because it's so simple and intuitive, but to build it was very difficult. But here's what we do as agents in business is we try to make the simple easier. And in our efforts to make it easier, we inherently make it much more complex. And
no, you nailed it. Like look at any of our Google Drives or any of our OneDrives or any of our Dropboxes. Like, we've been creating simple for the last 20 years, and it is 100 gigabytes of Google Docs and sheets and spreadsheets and formulas and codes and passwords and logins and hacks and scrapes, and
it's crazy, man.
Right. You right, just to requote that, right? Simple scales, complexity fails.
Yeah, simple scales and complexity fails. So when I see an agent who gets stuck in like that difficult 20 to 50 deal per year, which would be, according to NAR, a top producer, right? But we're looking for guys that are wanting to scale to 100, 200, 500,000 deals a year with their teams, and they get stuck. And I believe the reason they get stuck is because they lose sight of this idea that simple scales and complexity fails. And they get all these charts and grids and accountability plans and different lead mechanisms. And all of a sudden they can't scale because they forgot that it's a simple business of getting an opportunity, converting it to a sale, and then building your database one person at a time. And all that complexity weighs them down from going to the next level. So show me somebody who's at 50 deals a year who's stuck. And I bet if I start to pick in and ask them questions like, hey, what's your cost of, client acquisition? What are your lead costs right now? What are your top 3 lead pillars? I bet they couldn't answer the simplest questions about their business because they got too much chaos going on, because they've tried to hit the easy button by hiring out this, by buying that, and they've chased a bunch of squirrels that have made their world inherently complex, and now they can't move beyond that. But show me somebody who's crushing sales at the highest level, not for a year, for year after year after year. And what you'll find is a simple business where prospecting happens daily, where they have a strong database, they get 40% or more of their clients from repeat clients and referrals, and they execute at a high level the simplest things every time.
Yeah, that's gold. That's pure gold. That's fire nuggets that, I mean, whoever listens to this or watches this or downloads this, like that, like rewind that and listen to that again, rewind that, listen to that again, write that down, write that down, write that down. I think that, you kind of bouncing back to Chip Blach is like he drills it in your head, like work, stop handing everything off. Right. Do the work yourself. You've handed so much of this stuff out. You don't have any influence on it. You have you've lost touch with reality. And it's like, no wonder it fails. Like everything, you keep handing everything off. So yeah, it's funny. And I have the same conversation with agents all the time. And you're right. It's not that 1 year, it's at 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Cause there's always that one hit wonder. They have a lot of contacts, a lot of resources, and a lot of folks said, you should be in real estate. You should be in real estate. And they come in there, dump all the contacts, they sell all the contacts, and then they fall flat. And then they, sometimes they hang around. Most of the time they purge out. But it's always, you have that same conversation about building, helping build those pillars. And from where we're at the business, like we see that ahead of time in someone, especially if we've known them, from pre-license to post-license to going live in the business. Like, I mean, you know this, you can observe anyone's habits, for 30 to 90 days, especially as an agent, and you can predict the next 5-10 years in the industry. Right. And a lot of times it's just, you see where they're going. You sit them down, you go, let's put some structure around this. Like you are a rare breed, but you also dance that if we don't get you some processes and structure around there now, and some stability, some way to manage all of it, then you're going to go off the end of the tracks, off the rails. And that's where you burn out, or you just fizzle out and just quit. Right. So no, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. Great insight. So let me pick your brain a little bit. So we've been friends now for quite some time. Now it becomes like a annual visit out there at your place. Beautiful Bozeman, Montana. I do believe that was God's final. Yeah, I always feel like that's where God finished. He said, all right, one last masterpiece. It's going to be Montana, and then I'm out, right? Because it's the most beautiful place on the planet.
Keep it quiet, man. Don't tell too many people.
Yeah, nobody knows how beautiful Montana is. You can just tell by your guys' prices.
I think North Dakota is prettier. You might want to go check that place out.
North Dakota, like 9 people in North Dakota.
Yeah, go there first.
Right. Yeah, I think Yellowstone fixed that quiet secret for Montana, especially Bozeman. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, John. So we've known each other, I guess, I don't know, 10 years now, something like that, plus or minus. But you haven't always been in Bozeman. You haven't always been in real estate, have you?
Yeah, so I got into real estate in 2002 in upstate New York in the Hudson Valley area, which at the time when I got into real estate, it was really just kind of like a quiet, sleepy little valley, up by the Catskill Mountains. The cool thing is that, and still is that we were a bedroom community to Manhattan. So we had 10 million people that were looking for an escape from the busyness of the city every week that would come up and buy houses for, weekend purposes. And that's where I started my business. Did really well out of the gate. And, you know, my wife and I, we met in high school and we got married in 2006. And I said, hey, let's go somewhere new. Let's just like carve out our own path and like have a new start. And we decided on moving to Charlotte, North Carolina. And we were excited about that because I was looking at the transactional volume down there compared to the market that I was in. I was coming from an MLS of 700 agents to an MLS of 20 plus thousand agents. So just a whole different world as far as real estate was concerned. But I was confident, maybe naive at the time, that I could just go down there and do more business than I was doing in New York, where I knew everybody and I knew the market. I knew the area like the back of my hand. And I landed in Charlotte in late 2006. And we all know what happened in 2007. So that was a fun time.
Good timing.
Married. Yeah. Trying to make it in real estate in a market that I knew nothing about, with demographics like families in car seats and things that I had never dealt with. Track home communities. What is that? So it was a tough time for me to get a footing in this business in a new market as we go into that 2007. I was actually working 3 jobs at the time. But I've always sort of taken the struggle head on and embraced the challenge, because I think that with that mindset, you can overcome anything. And I was just trying to make it, right? So what I ended up doing is I ended up burning my boats. I got rid of the other 2 jobs that I had, and I went all in on real estate because I just looked at the landscape. And, you know, I was waiting tables at night and I looked at what my future would be like there, and it wasn't a good one. I was working for this other company that was more of a corporate thing where like I had some responsibilities that I did, and they were pretty flexible, which I mean was cool. But I was like, there's really no path for me here. There's certainly no passion here. And the only thing I was passionate about was real estate and the opportunities that it could provide for me. So I burned those boats. I went all in on real estate in 2007. I got my first real estate coach. I moved from the mom and pop that I was at, where I was supposedly getting leads, but I was getting, you know, the short end of the stick, really. And I took that plunge and went into the RE/MAX model, which was scary for me because it was like I had to pay monthly desk fees, but I was committed. And it was on the backside of that commitment, when I said I'm all in on this and it's sink or swim, that all the magic happened. And that's when, you know, I just followed my coach to a T because I needed this to work. And I started to get traction and I started to get momentum. And I was committed to becoming an expert. At that time, it was short sales and foreclosures. And I was like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I was looking at all the top agents in our market, and I was like, these guys are talented, but they're unwilling to do the hard work of short sale and foreclosure. It's like beneath them. And I spotted opportunity. And I just started going after that business. And guys, like, you know, you've been around, like, I didn't like it, but I loved real estate and I loved the idea of like carving a path for myself. So I did what I had to do. And I remember this conversation I had like it was yesterday. I was seeing this chiropractor who was also my client, and I go in to get adjusted because I'm like driving for dollars and I'm like killing it in the car, right? All day long I'm in the car. And I had this little Honda Accord at the time, and like the seat was awful and it hurt my back. So I'm getting adjusted. And as I'm getting adjusted, I noticed that the chiropractor, my client, Jen, looks at me with this like sincere level of concern and empathy. And she goes, John, how are you doing? And at this time I had gotten the traction already. I was following the coaching. I had a daily prospecting plan and I was killing it. And I looked at her and I said, amazing. Like, I have 10 closings on Friday. And I think when I verbalized that, like she was like, is this guy going to close anything? Like, is he going to be able to provide for his family? Like, the real estate sky is falling. That was the perception of everybody, most agents included. And when I told her that, it hit me like I figured it out. And now I just got to stay the course and I can build an amazing foundation. And it was out of that short sale foreclosure, as we kind of pulled ourselves out of that in the Southeast into the 2010 era, that I was able to build, you know, the number one team at my RE/MAX, which was the top brokerage in our market, to then go on and build my own independent brokerage. And really with the idea of the reason that I'm leaving RE/MAX isn't because I'm upset with RE/MAX or unhappy with them. It was actually a fantastic place for me to build my team, but I had a vision for something more. And my vision, guys, was that at RE/MAX, it was the Mikesh team at RE/MAX. And I was like, one of the things I think I've always been good at doing is like understanding this concept of WIFM, like what's in it for me, and putting myself in the position of my agents. And I had this really good team of agents that would follow me anywhere, and they all followed me to my independent brokerage. But the reason that I wanted an independent brokerage is because I wanted my name out of the equation, which was kind of outside the box at that time. Everybody that was starting a team was starting a team with their name. But I was like, hey, if I'm an agent and I'm a top producer on this team, do I always want to be in the shadow of somebody else's name and somebody else's lights? And for me, that answer was no. So I set out to create an independent brokerage that would still operate as a team, because I was committed to the team model for profitability, for leverage, and also for all the benefits that I could provide to my agents. But I wanted to run it under the guise of an independent brokerage so that they could have the anonymity to build themselves up under that name. And that's what we did. We started it in 2014. It was wildly successful. In Keller Williams terminology, I became a 7th level business. Like I literally took myself out of the production and ultimately out of the day-to-day of that business. And, kind of to bring the story home, that's what enabled me to travel the country full time with my family. We were on the national park circuit. We left North Carolina in 2019. My business is selling hundreds of homes, several hundred homes a year. I'm not there. It's still highly profitable. And what ultimately happened is COVID. And when COVID happened, I said, well, I don't want to go back to North Carolina. Of everywhere I've been, where do I want to plant my flag next? And we ended up relocating to Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah,
and
Bozeman's a tough sell too. I mean, any, many, money. Yeah, I think we'll stay in Bozeman.
The toughest part was wrapping my head around the prices out here. I was like, geez, man, I'm like a real estate guy, and this just doesn't even make sense to me. But when you look at the nature and the outdoor activities and the seasons, like we love cold and we love snow. We're kind of weird like that. All of our friends want to go to the beach, and we're like, can we go to Iceland? Like we've always been drawn to the mountains and the cold and just the coziness of that for us. And so we knew we wanted to be out in big mountain territory, and Bozeman just felt like a full-time place that was also like a vacation destination, where like we weren't going to move to Aspen or Jackson Hole. Like it just didn't feel like a place where we could raise our young daughter. And yeah, so it's been great, man. We've been here 4 years. When I landed in Bozeman, just assessing like what's that next step look like for me. And that's when I guess you could say that one of the challenges of growing a successful business is that in the process of doing that, a lot of times your identity becomes attached to that thing that you're building. And in looking back over my career, I think that was probably a stumbling block for me. Like I had a very strong identity to what I had built. And because of that, I had a lot of blinders on to like what else was out there. So it was like, I built this great independent brokerage and like I net a ton of profit every year. And I'm not like, I was attached to all that. But the time and space that being on the road for a year and a half gives you, and the perspective of that, and then moving across the country allowed me to kind of like reset and remove my identity from what I had built to look at like, what's the next best step for this brokerage? And if I wasn't going to go back, and all my transactional liability was falling on my shoulders, all the financial liability of everything that we had overhead wise there, it just caused me to look outside of that and be like, is there a better way or a next step for this business? And ultimately what I decided to do for me was to bring that business into the EXP model, because it could give me a lot of things that I couldn't offer as far as a career path to those agents. But it also helped, remove that transactional and a lot of that financial liability of running the brokerage and allowing them to run the brokerage, which to me is really just kind of like brain damage. So I could run the sales team. And I love sales. I love teams. I love accountability. I love growth. And for me, I just saw an infinitely scalable model, again, with that idea of let's keep it really simple. What am I good at? What do I like doing? Let's do more of that and less of the stuff that just gives me a headache.
Yeah, so I want to dice this up for a second. That is powerful testimony, powerful statement, and I knew that this is exactly the way that you would bring it. but I want to go back for a second because for the listeners, I want you to digest for a second. If you heard a lot of things. You heard that he started, right before the kickoff party of the real reset. And then you also heard in there that he cut his teeth by the most painful transactions that money can buy. All the REO stuff, the foreclosure,
$25 BPOs, one at a time. How many could you? I still have probably nightmares in the evening, waking up, going, like looking at this map, going, okay, how many BPOs can I route into one stop of dropping off like foreclosure notices for banks and doing drive-bys and BPOs at 25, 35, 40, I don't know what they were in your market, but in my market, they were $25 to $45 a piece.
Yeah.
And then going, okay, if I can knock out like 20 of those today, right, try to map them all out, it's like, oh man, that's going to be a good day. And, and then in between they're trying to do normal real estate stuff wherever is available, right, and calling your sellers and talking them off the cliff. And I mean,
but remember this though. Remember those $40 and $45 ones. Those were sketch.
Like
always.
Those were I actually went out and got my first handgun because of doing those BPOs. They sent me to these places in Charlotte that I didn't know existed. And they were like, back when they used to build a street that was like a dead end, it was like just a stub route. And I remember going into this one property and it was supposedly vacant, but there was like all these cars that were on like 30-inch rubber rims and rubber band tires. And I called my wife and I said, hey, I'm going into this house. If I don't call you within 10 minutes, here's the address, call 911. Like, I thought I was going to get like jacked in the house. Yeah. Like, here's this white guy. Back then I was like pleated pants and loafers and a button up shirt. And I don't know what I was thinking, but that was just my get up at that time. And I'm like, they're going to kill me in here, man. And I was like, I'm getting a handgun. At least I'm going out with a fight. And I did. I got one the next month. But it's crazy, man.
My BPO career came to a quick close. I wouldn't say quick close, but I started getting a little bit more particular when, you walk into the houses that are vacant and they're not, right? And you got the people squatting in them, the ones with the Carhartts and the mannequins with ketchup squirted all over them with like the sign, spray paint all over the walls. You're next with a knife stuck in them, and then the shotgun pulled on me with the guy walking out of his garage and going, "You from the bank?" I'm like,
"Nope."
And I'm like, you can point. You don't need to point that at me, like. And it's like, all right, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out this real estate thing real quick because
hey, one thing about it,
expectancy is blinking really fast doing it this way.
One thing about it, agents today when they're role playing and they're developing and growing and learning scripts, and it's like, oh, this is so painful. This is so painful. I'm like, no, it's really not. Here, let me walk you back through time and explain to you how easy it can be to learn scripts. Let me introduce you to this thing called BPO and the high paying BPOs. Let me introduce you to those because those will really make you learn scripts and really teach you the art and value of prospecting right here in a 70-degree environment. Most definitely.
Yeah, right.
So John, let me ask you this. So you touched on something that was golden also. You said very, very early on in your career path, I heard you say you invested into a coach. Was that correct?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. So I mean, some of the listeners out there may be new agents, maybe seasoned agents, maybe anywhere in between. But I mean, in a lot of us that will listen to this know all too well about coaching and the value of coaching. But oftentimes when you come in this business as a pre-licensed instructor myself, and when I have this conversation with agents, they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean like a coach? And then you get into the conversation about the cost and the levels of coaching and stuff. And then it's like, oh my God, why would someone ever pay that? I'm like, you see Tiger Woods, you see Conor McGregor, you see these champions, like they don't become champions by themselves. They have to have someone in their corner that's always watching them grow, learn, and develop, and give them that feedback and observation and advice of the mistakes that they're making and how to capitalize on those mistakes. So take us through that experience. That was pretty wise for you to do that early on.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're human, right? So no matter how much motivation, self-drive, discipline we have, we're only going to take ourselves so far, which is why Everybody who's ever come through any sport, who's ever done anything at a high level has had one or multiple, in many cases, coaches get them to get more out of them than they can get out of themselves. So it's just about putting yourself in that environment. Darren Hardy wrote an amazing book, or Benjamin Hardy rather wrote an amazing book called Willpower Doesn't Work. Because if we're only relying on our willpower, we're only going to get so far, probably like 40% of what our potential is. Not that I knew all this back then. My coaching story is kind of funny, but it is what it is. I had 3 jobs at the time, like I said earlier. I was working at a mom and pop brokerage, and a guy walks into the sales meeting one day, and he's got tickets. And he's like, I'm going to this super conference. Do you guys want to come? I got 2 extra tickets. They're buddy passes, and they're only $500. And I spent a lot more than $500. And I'm driving, so you can ride with me. And I was just sitting there in the corner of the sales room, and I was like, man, like, I need something to change. So I, didn't have $500, but I called my mom, and she's like, I'll spot you. And I was like, cool. So I borrowed $500 from my mom. I told my wife I was going to this conference with these 2 guys in my office. And I was like 20s at that time. And these 2 guys were like in their 50s and 60s. So it was a little awkward and a little uncomfortable. And I'm riding down, and we had to go from Charlotte to Orlando for this conference. And we get there and we pull up to the venue, and it's like beautiful. It's at a JW Marriott. And I'd never even been to one of those before. And I'm like, wow, this is like super nice conference hotel. And Jerry, the guy who drove, was like, yeah, we're not staying here. So he just wanted to show us and kind of get the lay of the land of where we were going the following morning. And so we go to our hotel. It's literally on the other side of the tracks. There's 2 beds. There's 3 dudes. Like, this is like a very low time in my life. And I'm like, crap. So like, I think that there's power in being in a low place. And for me, the only way to go is up. And I show up at the conference the next day, and I'll never forget it. Like, they're checking people in, and then like I'm walking around the lobby, and there's all these people with different color, like lapels hanging off their name tag. And those different colors represented different levels of income, which I quickly realized. And I was like, holy crap. Like, you have to stretch your mind. And it's like, once you stretch it, it'll never go back to the original size. And I was like, there's people here that are making money in real estate that I didn't even know was possible. So like, and then I'm here in the conference, and everything they're saying is making sense. They're literally giving me the answer to every problem I have. And I'm like, I need this. The problem was I had no money. So I call my wife at the lunch break, and I'm jacked out of my mind. And she's, at home dealing with, being pregnant and just like everything, right? And she's not a fan. And she's like, honey, we're broke. So I don't know what you're so excited about, but if you buy anything, like, we're divorced when you get home. And I was like, dang, she's never said that before. Like, this is really where I'm at. So the way my mind works is probably a little different than most, but I'm like, I just heard something that I've never heard before that's very scary. Like, there's 2 things that I don't want to end up: in prison or divorced. And I'm like, dang. So I go back into the conference, and I'm like, now I need it even more, because if the D word's already coming out, that's a tell to where I'm at in my business career. So I'm like, I got to make this work. So I go to these people at the conference, and I'm like, hey, I need this thing, this coaching that you're selling. I was like, can I like get it now and pay in 90 days? Because I was like that committed that they had the answers and I was going to be on my way. And they were like, yeah, we won't charge your credit card for 90 days. I'm like, will you put that in writing? And they're like, yeah, we'll put it right on this. They had the old like white, yellow, pink.
Knuckle buster.
Yeah. So they wrote it on there. And I was like, good for me. And once I knew that they were willing to do that, I just stayed in the back of the room, and I got the coaching, I got the technology, I got the 800 numbers, I got the classified ad system, like everything that they were selling, I was buying. And
that's gangster stuff back there. Dude, classified ads, 800 numbers.
I was like, if I'm going to end up divorced anyway, I'm going to go out with a fight, right? So I buy all this stuff, and I remember going back in the car with these 2 guys, and I'm like, literally, I'm having like an out of body experience. I'm already like a multimillionaire. And like, I just left this conference, and And these guys are in the front seat and I'm in the back, and they're talking about, well, we got this other 800 number service that we're going to use. We don't have to get the one he's using. And I just remember it was like the last thing I said the whole 9-hour ride home. I was like, hey guys, we're all broke and we're all idiots. You're an even bigger idiot than I thought if you think you're going to do it your way. I was like, I'm going to do it their way.
Yeah.
And I did. And both of those guys are out of the business and I'm here. And I made more money in the next 90 days than I had ever made in a year before. And it literally, like, I've been coached ever since. I have a coach today. Like, I've never gone a month without being coached at least by one person. And I've coached with a lot of people in real estate, a lot of people out of real estate. Right now, my coach is not a real estate coach. He's more like a mentor or a guide for me, somebody that's much wiser than I am, that's been around a lot longer. And he just helps keep me on track. I don't think you can put a price tag on coaching. How do I put a price tag on a $500 event that changed my life, that allowed me to go on to make 7 figures a year, year after year after year after year? Like, how do you put a price tag on that? Other kids are going to college, right? And they're spending hundreds of thousands, taking on massive debt to be indoctrinated both politically and personally and professionally into who knows what, right? I mean, go do your own research on that, but they might go in one party and come out the other party after 4 years. And they're coming away from that with debt and to try to get a job, right? In most cases, a job where I can make more in 1 month in this business than they can in a whole year. Or in Bozeman, Montana, I can make more on one sale of the average sale price than a teacher or police officer can make in an entire year. I'm not saying that it's better than that. Those are noble professions. I'm just saying, understand the game you're playing and what the value is, because it can literally change your life and have a ripple through your whole family tree.
Man, that is absolutely, like, ladies and gentlemen, like, this is not scripted. We had a script. We just went out the window because when you're rolling and you're dropping bombs and you're bringing fire, just let it run. Just let it run. And every bit of that is absolutely point on. And just talking about burning the boats and just, being resourceful. That was a pure life example of being resourceful. I sat down. I've got I won't disclose their name, but I've got a really, really awesome agent that he was in one of my previous or recent pre-license classes. And he's an awesome individual, and not to disclose too much, he's got a very high profile athlete son that plays some very good college ball. But anyway, from here to there, we're sitting there. So he's covering the family's expenses, man. He's stretched. He just know he's that gold, man. He's going to bring so much value to the marketplace. And we've had several conversations over the last, 7-8 weeks as he's transitioning into real estate. As you know, it is an arm and a leg, to get into the business once you get a license. And so he's working through that transition because, the cost of living these days isn't the cheapest it's ever been. And so he's being methodical. He's got a wife, he's got kids, and, he's got kids in college and stuff like that too. So, the wife's like, hey, watch the spending, right? And so he does Uber. Which I looked at, and we had this conversation. I'm like, man, like, do you understand? Like when I see someone transitioning into real estate in Uber or DoorDash or any of these, jobs like this, these opportunities to make some ends meet. I'm like, man, that is such a gateway for someone trying to get in this business, because he was trying to save up and trying to figure out a way to exit that and come into that. I said, don't do that. I said, to me, I'm going to work shifts around the airport. If I'm in Uber, right? People,
exactly.
I don't care. I'm going to pay what it takes to get to my room and get back and forth. But what brings you here? I'm here on business. What kind of business? So I'm just opening that conversation, having that discovery. And next thing you know, I'm going to help this guy locate some property, right? Or he's going to be another connector, not besides just, making good, extra revenue to, cover your expenses while you're in the business. So long story short, he was trying to figure out, he was considering going to work with Amazon, at night and doing this in daytime. I said, man, it's not, I don't want to tell you what to do with that, but don't build too many boats. The more boats you build, the more safety and security you have, the more stability you have, and the less that you're going to be able to swim in water when it comes to burning the boats. I said, but I would hold on to the Uber opportunity because you can clock in and clock out whenever you want. You want to work at night, go work at night. You want to work strictly around events, but he's golden. And so it was, and we got to talking about coaching, and I've shared some coaching with him, and he's already in the coaching mindset because his son plays for USC. So he's all dialed into that coaching. He's like, I didn't know that was a thing. I'm like, yeah, man, it's like to get from good to great and great to greater. Like you must have that individual that's been where you want to go, that can give you that stone cold advice and input and observation that maybe the people that's closer to you are not going to tell you the things that the coach is going to tell you. Totally. Right. So it's very
I was telling
impactful.
Somebody about Uber, man. Like, I think that's such a, like my version of Uber when I was getting started was waiting tables. Now you're at something from 4:30 in the afternoon till, 11, 12 o'clock at night. That's a huge commitment, and it's tough, right? Like you said, Uber, you can turn it on, turn it off. So I'm having this conversation with this new agent starting out, and I'm like, dude, you should Uber and until you get your business to where you can really go all in. Like, I understand you got to make some money. And this is an interesting dialogue that I had with this person because, and it's going to lead to another thing I want to share with you guys. So the person's like, yeah, but if I'm, my car is this, and if I'm Ubering and I'm trying to get real estate clients out of that scenario, just like you said, Shane, they're going to say, well, I'm not going to work with this guy. Like, he's not a player. And I just felt so bad for him because I was like, bro, you already lost. Like, and he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, let me share something with you. Like, a big part of being successful in this business that they don't talk about, that they don't teach, is you've got to be able to build rapport and read your audience. I was like, maybe you're not the guy for everybody, but you can't be a one script pony. Like, imagine you go to the airport and you pick up a nice couple and they're going to the least expensive hotel. Their suitcases are all ratty and old looking. And you ask them why they're there. And they're like, we're thinking about relocating to this area. You're their agent, bro. Like, you were going to work with them. They are not going to prejudge you by your car or anything. I said, but contrast that with this. You pick somebody up at the airport. They come out on their phone looking real buttoned up. They got Toomey luggage and they go to the most expensive, resort hotel in your area. When they start talking about, yeah, we're looking at investments or like whatever this area, then Shane's your boy. Hey, let me tell you about my agent, Shane. He's been representing me and my whole family. He's got the #1 brokerage in town. This guy, like, you will thank me after you talk to him. And you know what you do on that one? You collect a referral fee. I said, because you're right. You're not going to get that one, but you will get the other one. So you got to know your audience and be adaptable. But the reason that my heart sank for this guy that I was talking to, I was like, we either choose to have a victim mentality or a victor mentality. And I was like, this person's already chosen to be a victim of their circumstances. And the likelihood is, unless there's a whole lot of new input that comes in, they're always going to be that way. When I landed in Charlotte, I was like, I'm going to be successful. I don't know how, I don't know what, but like, it was in me that like I was going to win. And I don't know where that confidence came from. It came from God. It came from the way my parents raised me. But I've always been confident, even on the verge of being arrogant. And it's served me very well. Now, this whole story isn't rosy, right? Like, you guys know, like, building a business is tough. There's ups, there's downs. I've made a ton of mistakes. I've railroaded people right out of my business. I've been like my way or the highway. And true leadership is influence, right? And I haven't always been a true leader. Becoming a leader requires a lot of failure along the way. But I'd like to think that I'm a better leader today than I was 10 or 20 years ago because I've learned these things. But over my career, it's like I've made a lot of mistakes, and I made a lot of mistakes in leadership. I made a lot of mistakes in administrative and how I've managed people. I made a lot of mistakes as a technician, as doing the real estate. So like, one of the books that's always been super helpful to me is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, because it's so simple, right? It's written as a fable. It's this lady who's got a pie shop, but it's this understanding that in any business, for any business to be successful, real estate or otherwise, there's got to be 3 different hats worn: the hat of the technician, the hat of the manager, and the hat of the entrepreneur or visionary. I've always had the entrepreneurial kind of like stuff in me, but I had to learn how to be a good manager. And I've always been a good technician because I love this business and I love the doing. Like, I got into real estate because I went through this long journey of like, I grew up, I wanted to be an architect. I was fortunate to get to do an internship in architecture. And I realized real quickly, I didn't want to copy and paste my whole life. And then I was like, well, I'm going to be a contractor. And I went out and I did that, and at the very high levels of luxury contracting in St. Simon's Island, Georgia. And I was like, man, this is great. And then I got into interior design. And then through that, I was introduced and invited to come into the real estate space. And I'm so thankful I did, because it's taken a lot of my interest and passions, and it's allowed me to be a good technician because I have the interest. If you have zero interest in houses and you just want to get into real estate to make money, like, I promise you, there's a better way for you than this business. Like, it's like when I get new agents and I'm sitting across the table from them, I'm asking myself, would I buy a house from this person? If you have zero interest in houses and decor and like styles and architecture and like how things are built and why this is better than that, like, don't do this business, because it's not a money grab. Like, go into financial services if you just want a money grab. But this business requires a level of passion and dedication to the product, which is why I never got into the commercial side of things, because I love the product of residential real estate. And I think that will allow you to build something great if you're coachable and you're willing to put the work in.
John,
Man,
sorry not to cut you off, but I had a question. I guess a deeper dive. You had mentioned some different fails along the way, right? Things that you had to learn, things that you had to grow through, things that you had experience. If you had to pick like the biggest failure in business, what would you pit as your biggest?
Yeah. When I think of that question, Duane, I think there's a tactical response and more of like an overarching response. Tactically, if I look at my real estate career, what was the biggest mistake that I made? It was that I constantly switched platforms early on. I was like, hey, we're going to do this. And like, switching a platform is very disruptive to a business that's run on a platform or a CRM. And I switched like 3 different times within 36 months early on in my career. And it was a real roadblock for me. Like, it burned my people out. It like created confusion. It took me longer to get traction. Listen, get a system, whatever it is, and learn that system and be great on that system. When I look back, the system that got me traction, like early on, I was running agent office. Like, it was horrible, but it did what it needed to do. And I followed it to a T. Then all these new platforms came out, like Tiger Leads and Boomtown and ultimately Commissions Inc. And like, it was like, I had to go this one, and then no, this one's better. I have to go to this one. And it really affected my growth early on. As soon as I planted my flag with, for me, it was Commissions Inc. And I stayed with that platform. I was an original founding member of them, an original investor, and got to partake in that, which was amazing. But once I said, this is it, and I put my blinders on to everything else, that's when we saw hockey stick growth in our business. So I think tactically, that was probably the biggest mistake that I was making early on. But overarching, like, as I look back as a, almost 44-year-old person today over my career, the biggest mistake is that I made the business my identity. And because of that, like, everything mattered more than it really mattered. Like, if I could go back and run my team today, I would have made it about each and every individual that was a part of that business. Because when it was about my identity, it was about the way I did things, and everybody had to do things the way that I would do things. And that was just a mismanagement, and it was a misunderstanding of what a true technician in a business is. What I've come to learn over time is that somebody doing something their best way that's 80% your way still captures the brand identity that you need to be able to make sure you're consistent at. but it'll allow them to shine. And I think if you can build your business that way, your people will be with you longer. And all of us who have run teams know that there's an equation about longevity. Those that have teams with people that are with them longer do better over the long run than people that constantly have a revolving door. And I'm ashamed to say that my business was a revolving door for a lot of years. And I was able to make it work. But I think it was a failure in my leadership over that time. So that's probably, the way I look at it at this point. But if somebody's looking for something real tactical, it's like, don't switch things up in your business. Find something that works and stick with it. Go really deep. Don't keep going wide looking. And it's what I started out earlier saying. We're always looking for an easier way, and we're seduced into easy, that we make changes, and changes add complexity to what we're trying to accomplish. When you have an annual goal and there's a major disruption, or you deviate from your rocks and your priorities quarter to quarter to go chase a new shiny squirrel, it throws the whole business off. And I think we underestimate like the impact that can have on what we're trying to accomplish.
Gold.
I think that's excellent insight. Right. There's so many different quotes on keeping it simple. And I know even in my business, right, I know I can pinpoint on a calendar, on a graph, and going, okay, we made a big change there. Right. And then see what happens after that. And you're hoping that production goes up, sales go up. Right. But oftentimes, right, there's that adaptation curve. Yep. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? Why are we dipping? Why are we going down? Why are we going the opposite direction? And
here's the lie you got to be careful for, though.
Mm-hmm.
We're considered older guys now. So there's a young up and coming kid coming out of real estate school right now, just full of ambition, who's saying, yeah, but you don't understand. It's different now. And it is, but that's a nuanced thing. It's really not. And I would argue that there's nothing different in real estate that's truly going to be a game changer for a real estate agent career. There's nothing different, because there's social media and there's YouTube and there's, AI. Are those things going to impact our business? For sure. But here's what I know to be true. You still have to talk to people. You still have to convert those people you talk to be people that are going to work with you. And you still have to go out and sell them a home. And then you still have to service them after the sale and create clients for life. So fundamentally, the wheel of what it takes to roll in this business hasn't changed. The inputs are slightly different or modern or newer. But the trap that I see agents today falling into is they're saying it's different, and therefore they're creating their own dark corners, their own dark shadows, so that they can hide in obscurity and not do the things that are required to be successful in a business today. And that's what makes a coach like Chip Blach so effective, is he'll go shine the light on that corner. And he'll be like, dude, I'm so happy that you're doing YouTube and you're a YouTube influencer overnight. Let me ask you something, though. And this is what I would imagine you would ask. How many contacts did you generate from that lead source today, this week, this month? How many people? Because here's the things that I tracked in my business for decades. How many people did you talk to? How many people did you set an appointment with? How many of those appointments showed up? How many people did you actually sign to an agency agreement? And then of those people that you signed to an agency agreement, how many people have you followed up with this week, and how many people are under contract? There's your whole sales cycle, people. Change the inputs. It don't matter if it's YouTube, it's Google pay-per-click, it's your SEO website, it's door knocking, it's open houses. None of that matters. Just pick 3 of them and stick to it. But when you know your numbers, then the world is your oyster and you can do anything you want to do. And the other mistake I see people making, more on the side of us to them, is we're saying, hey, this is how I became successful. Duane, this is your only path to success. Like, I just want the coach that teaches the fundamentals of blocking and tackling. And I want to be able to inject my own personality, my own way. Hey, if you want to go do it through YouTube, great. Be the best agent at YouTube, but don't lose sight of the fact that it's about contacts, appointments set, appointments had, agency signed, follow up, and new contracts. And if you can't track whatever it is you're doing in that way, and you're unwilling to put public visibility on that tracking with a coach, with a peer, with another agent group that you're in, you're probably not going to achieve much of anything.
Absolute gold.
It hasn't changed, right? Everybody wants to think it's different.
Look when the market had changed 2-3 years ago now, right? When it went from an order taking market, you needed zero skill. You just literally had to show up. Right? And you tripped over contracts, you tripped over buyers, right? It was an order taking environment. And the second it switched, what did every big box, every big real estate company, every real estate coach start preaching? Right. Back to the basics.
Back to the basics. The interesting thing about that statement,
the interesting thing was John was always the one saying, "Why did we ever get away from them?" Right.
The interesting thing about it though is somebody told me this early on, and it didn't make sense until it made sense. 80% of winning in this business is psychology. When we were in if you actually run the math, go back 3 years in the order taking days, right? And look at the math. We were at all-time highs in real estate MLS participation. And yeah, the contracts were up, 40% or so from where they are now. But I guarantee you there was 40% more agents or close to it. So on an agent per transaction in each and every MLS, we weren't that different than we are today. And I would argue that we're going to be in a better scenario, a better ratio 6 months or 12 months from now. There's going to be more transactions per agents 6 months from now than there is today. Mark my words. That's a fact. But we're like, I wish it was easier like it used to be then. But largely, the only thing that was easier then was that the mindset of the people was it was easier. And because they believed it was easier, it was. I think it's easier now because, we got to do things differently. We actually got to ask for the order. We got to ask for agency. But you know what I realized when I've always run my business that way. So for me, I'm excited I've always preached this. Like we get agency, we show our value proposition, and we go out and serve clients. What I'm excited about is agents are going to find that when they ask to be their choice in representation and they do it and they deliver a value proposition, clients are going to say things to them like, wow, nobody else has shown me that before. You're the first person that actually explained that to me. And they're going to realize it's way easier than they think it is if they'll just allow themselves to believe that it's going to be a better way of doing business. And therein lies the future of our next wave of people that are going to come up through this business.
Yeah, it's funny because, in that mastermind conference last week, like it's a room full of, real estate icons. I mean, it's just one of those conferences you just don't go to. It's not a foo-foo.
Like event. Attracts like.
Exactly. And and Chip, he asked everybody in the room, he said, you guys know the formula, and he does this all the time. He said, let me give you the three easy, just do these three things every day. And then you can have the rest of the day off. You do this, knock these three things out in the AM, and then do whatever else you want in the afternoon. You hunt in the AM, you eat in the PM. 8:30, 9:30, prospecting and recruiting, prospecting in your leadership database. At 9:30 to 10:30, in the trenches with your people, in your databases, hammering out. 10:30, 11:30, inspecting the database, inspecting missed opportunities, inspect what you expect. And then, do whatever you want the rest of the day, which basically means like you ain't going to have any more time the rest of the day. You're going to be booked till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. But he always brings that message. And he asked everybody in the room, he said, let me see a hand, see a show of hands of everybody that has followed that verbatim, those 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for the past 90 days. And it's
Monsters.
Yeah, but
it was 200 of some of the best producers, best team leads, best whatevers in the nation that were in that room.
Yeah.
And the hands didn't go up.
And the hand,
Yeah.
but here's okay. But I bet if you asked that room of people, did they ever do that consistently over time? Most of the hands would go up.
Oh.
There's something else that we have to understand about this game. It's not going to be a grind forever.
Mm-mm.
Here's the 3 components of a real estate agent career. Get leads and opportunities. How you get them, I don't care. Just pick 3 and stay diligent with them. Convert those leads to sales. Get your 10,000 hours in on scripts and you'll be unconsciously competent for the rest of your life. I haven't sold a house since 2015, but I could get on the phones today and convert at a higher level than most agents who do it every day or supposedly do it every day because I got my 10,000 hours. And then the third component, which is super important, is build that database and nurture that database. What a lot of agents do is, I've seen a lot of good agents do this. They get on the hamster wheel of leads and they squirrel away leads and they convert those leads at a high level, but they forget about the third component, which is building a database. The database is what's going to make, if you do it correctly, this business should get easier every single year. If you go out and slay it this year and sell 50 homes, that's 50 people that you should have served well that are in your database. Once you build a database to 500 people of people that you've served and taken good care of, that database, if you nurture it properly, is going to produce 10% or more of the total database in sales every single year for you thereafter. That's why Aruma high producers, because I believe they've done this, their hands don't go up anymore because they don't have to do that thing anymore. So if you're new listening to this, take assurance in, hey, it's going to be hard before it's easy. But if you embrace the hard, it will get easier in any area of your life. Call it 75 hard, call it 5 to 7 years of hard to have a lifestyle that I don't believe there's anything else that you can, or there's very few things that you could get into with no college education, where if you're willing to put your head down, follow a proven system, and I would encourage you to do that. Don't go try your way. Follow a proven system, work really hard, do a good job, love on people, and be a good human, and you can have an amazing life.
Man, that was gold. That was gold, John. I mean, we'll put a bow on it right there, brother, because I know you got a crazy schedule. That you just pulled it all together right there and just put it in a big fancy bow. That was awesome, John. If for any of the listeners out there, like how can they reach out? How can they make contact with you and on a deeper level, or just kind of connect off this call?
Yeah, right now, our newest product is agentmarketingmachine.com. So that would be the best way to interact with me. Just a program that, you can learn about there that we feel super encouraged by. And like, it's really been a passion project over the last year for me and my buddy, Nick. So it'd be a great way to connect with me on there.
Okay. All right, man. We appreciate your time so much. I know it's very, very tough to squeeze out a good hour like this, but I mean, this was absolutely phenomenally, massively gold, man. It was pure fire.
Awesome.
I appreciate the connection today. Appreciate the friendship and, connecting over all these years with you. And who knows?
Hit me up when you're coming back to town to go hunting.
Yeah. Well, might not get to hunt this year. I had a little unforeseen circumstances kind of put me in a bad mood last year with some vehicle issues, but nonetheless, we're still gonna venture out to make our way out west this fall.
There's no way that we are not coming back to Montana to hunt again. Like,
we'll look forward to it, guys.
It's not happening. Life is not almost worth living without that.
That's true.
That's why
I just want to say this. I love watching you guys from afar. I love the passion and the heart that you bring to everything you do. And I just want to encourage you guys to keep doing it. It's impacting a lot of people.
All right, we appreciate it. Likewise, my friend. Likewise, birds of a feather. It's just that connections, as relationship built along the way. And if it wasn't for this industry, if it wasn't for having the relationship with Commissions Inc., like we wouldn't be connected today. None of the three of us actually. So that's you never know where that connection is going to bring. But just being that good human and just looking for the next opportunity to help someone else or just make a positive impact on their life is where great relationships, partnerships, and even friendships begin. So I am forever grateful. Forever grateful.
Sweet, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.
Peace.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the R.E.A.L. podcast. Don't forget to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for more exclusive content. Keep striving for success, and we'll see you in the next episode.